What's up gamers, Lex here of the top 10 best quality of life changes coming to Season 2 of Diablo 4. This video includes updates announced in the October 4th dev livestream. There were a ton of changes covered, so I put together a list of my personal favorites. Keep in mind only half of the patch notes were covered in the last livestream, and the rest will be covered in another livestream on October 10th, followed by the release of the full patch notes. I'm really looking forward to the rest of the announcements, so be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for that future content. The quality of life changes considered in this video include changes that improve a player's general experience in the game. Most of these updates come from player feedback, including my own, and really show that Blizzard has been listening to us. Not included in this quality of life list are new character progression systems like the vampiric powers, or new endgame content like the 5 added bosses. Let's get started on the top 10. Number 10, experience gains increase to make reaching level 100 40% faster. This change might be higher up on the list for some players, but I found reaching max level to be already quite fast compared to other ARPGs, although I can understand boosting experience to help more casual players. Even if the blaster players reach level 100 within a couple of days, maximizing other character progression systems and completing other endgame goals can provide further playtime. For example, the new Uber bosses being introduced in Season 2 bring a greater challenge and a chase for exclusive unique items. Reaching level 100 becomes just the beginning of a character's progression, especially as more endgame content is added in future seasons. So this is a great change for players with more limited playtime that want to reach that level 100 goal, while not really affecting players that want to continue for higher achievements. Number 9, mount buffs. Mounts were introduced for the first time in the franchise in Diablo 4 to help traverse the huge outer world of Sanctuary, but they were a bit clunky, resulting in some players being better off on foot. Mounts would be updated to be less likely to get stuck or slow down, and they would have an easier time jumping over gaps. A 14% base movement speed increase is aimed at making travel through town faster, which is a decent buff to reduce downtime. The duration of the speed boost is being increased by 50%, and the cooldown of the speed boost is already affected by cooldown reduction on the character, so I could see this having a 100% uptime for some builds. Coupled with an update to speed boost breaking through barricades, mounts should become an unstoppable force. Mounting cooldowns are also being reduced, with both manual and forced dismounts being halved. This change is very much welcomed, and although I can understand having a cooldown after being forcibly knocked off your mount, I would like to see the manual dismount cooldown reduced to 1 second or removed entirely. Oftentimes players have to dismount to climb up cliffs, and they should be able to remount immediately afterwards. Alternatively, mounts would have to be able to run up and down walls, which would be a weird sight to see. Number 8, Nightmare Dungeon teleporting puts you directly inside the dungeon, reducing time spent in loading screens. This teleport feature was first introduced in Season 1 after player feedback, and it put players right outside of the dungeon to remove the need for lengthy runs through the outer world. Blizzard is once again listening to continuing player feedback to move the teleport location directly inside the dungeon, resulting in only 1 loading screen instead of 2. The teleport change doesn't shave off much downtime for me since I only play on a high-end PC, but I could see this change being higher up on the list for players with slower loading systems. Number 7, additional stashes being added to small towns and capital cities. Not having a stash at small towns with waypoints and vendors was a bit awkward. Also, the only stash locations in capital cities were located in inns that were a bit out of the way. I was pleasantly surprised by how many stashes were being added to convenient locations in the examples given during the dev livestream. Number 6, crafting material updates. I'm lumping 2 changes regarding crafting materials in this category. First of all, gems will drop as crafting materials so they won't take up inventory space. The gem materials are stored in the materials tab until you're ready to craft them at the drawer. Crafted gems can also be salvaged back into crafting materials when not needed, freeing up 7 stash spaces for me. The second part of this update is lower power equipment dropping as crafting materials. This means as you get into Word Tier 3 and sacred items start to drop, non-sacred items will no longer appear. Instead, crafting materials will drop in place of non-sacred equipment that has too low of an item power. Likewise, only ancestral equipment will be seen dropping in Word Tier 4. I really like this change because it reduces the time spent picking up and checking low item power drops that you wouldn't use anyways at your current word tier level. The crafting material drops will go into your materials tab with auto pickup, saving inventory space and trips to the blacksmith for salvaging. Number 5. Minimap zoomed out further. Navigation in Diablo 4 is slightly more limited compared to other ARPGs with map overlays. Before the game came out, Rod was asked if a map overlay would be added, and he responded with no plans at the moment. I made a suggestion to allow the minimap to be zoomed out further to compensate, so I'm glad to see this update. Zooming out the minimap will make it easier to navigate dungeons without the need to hit tab. Number 4. Renown Rewards persist between seasons and new characters. Blizzard initially probably wanted players to farm Renown every season to increase replay value, but Renown activities just aren't that interesting. Going out of the way to complete additional normal dungeons just doesn't make sense once you unlock Nightmare dungeons in Word Tier 3. Running around to Lilith statues is just brain-dead content, and side quests don't offer any new experiences after you completed them the first time. Now if you enjoy Renown content, you can still do them, they just don't flow well in the current progression of the endgame. Personally, I would love to see Renown reworked to include more relevant endgame activities. If Renown farming was made to be more interesting, it can be changed back to being wiped for every season start. Number 3. Enchantment costs are overall cheaper. Trying to find the right affix through repeating enchants can quickly become very costly. If an item isn't perfect, I usually stop enchanting once the cost becomes 1 mil gold. At that point, mediocre items can be tossed out, and you can go back to farming for another one to try again later. But rare items with 3 out of 4 well-rolled affixes can be hard to find, so you want to keep enchanting them until you get that 4th affix. The problem is this can quickly end up costing hundreds of millions of gold if you're unlucky. The enchantment change will increase your starting first attempt, but the following attempts won't skyrocket up as fast as before. Blizzard's goal is to reduce the amount of gold spent on re-rolling affixes multiple times, and we'll have to see how this one plays out. Number 2. Completely removed objectives from a handful of dungeons. The current dungeon objectives have only given runs more downtime. Running back and forth to deliver items only means less time fighting monsters. Kill all enemy objectives requires players to stop at each individual foe, or even worse, backtrack to kill that last enemy that was missed. There wasn't any info regarding which dungeons had their objectives removed, so we have to check this one out in Season 2. This update also comes with a redesign on some dungeon layouts to further reduce backtracking. And finally, number 1, Stash Search. This might sound fairly simple for my number 1 quality of life change in Season 2, but sometimes it's the simple things in life that bring the most joy. The stash will also have a filter for equipment slot types and rarity. Although these categories can already be identified in their display icons, the filter can be useful to highlight things that you're looking for. What I'm really looking forward to is the search bar at the bottom of the stash tabs. Like most people, I tend to hoard legendary items with aspects that could be useful later for extraction. But when I need to find a particular aspect, it's very time-consuming to mouse over each individual item to check their tooltips. Typing aspect names into the search bar will allow players to quickly find them, which means less time spent at the stash and more time actually playing the game. Well, that's my top 10 list. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my analysis in the comments below. Some honorable mentions include increased monster density during dungeon events, coupled with NPCs no longer getting one-shot in later word tiers. Improved readability for traps coupled with reduced crowd control durations. 10 unlocked waypoints added to campaign skip to make it easier to traverse Sanctuary on new characters. 71 more word boss spawns. Items can be marked as favorite to prevent being sold or salvaged. And finally, 2 additional character slots. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel for future D4 content. You can also join our Discord and follow my Twitch channel. I'll see you at the next dev livestream on October 10th. Until then, peace out and happy slaying.